So you can start.
Brilliant. Okay, just bear with me. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Okay, so while my screen's loading, I'm here today to talk to you about the accessibility benefits of Copilot. So particularly Copilot for Microsoft 365, but not only this Copilot. Hopefully you've all been having a really good day at the Microsoft Copilot and Viva Day. There's tons of really great sessions from awesome speakers that have been held throughout the day, and a few more to continue through the rest of the afternoon as well. A huge thank you to the sponsors, because without the sponsors, events like these can't happen. So this event includes a lot of hands-on sessions by experts and community leaders with a deep dive into things like Viva and Copilot, and an opportunity to win exciting prizes as well. And who doesn't want exciting prizes? Now, a little bit about me. My name is Zoe Wilson. I work at Avanade as one of our global modern workplace practice leads. And for almost a year now, I've been leading our global go-to-market for Copilot for Microsoft 365. So I've had Copilot for M365 myself for nearly a year as well. I'm a regional director and an MVP. I'm also a Viva Explorer. So as well as Copilot, I do a lot of sessions talking about Viva and particularly how the two can benefit each other. You can see my Twitter handle and LinkedIn on the bottom. If we're not already connected, please feel free to get in touch. I'm always happy to help answer questions and love to build my network. So what are we going to cover today? I'm going to talk a little bit about what accessibility is and why it matters, and then a little bit of an overview of accessibility in Microsoft 365. That's going to be quite short. Historically, this started out as a session that I've been presenting for a few years, because when I look at Microsoft 365, there are so many hidden accessibility features that a lot of people don't know about. And I became really passionate about helping to educate people on all of these tools that can help people be able to work more easily, work more effectively. With the introduction of all of the different co-pilots, it feels like those accessibility benefits have been supercharged almost. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the accessibility features that exist in Microsoft 365 today, and then we'll focus on how Copilot helps. And I've got some live demos that I'll show you, which will look at Copilot in Windows, Copilot in the Edge browser, Copilot in Microsoft 365. And I'll talk about how it can help in some of the other Copilot products as well. So first of all, when we talk about accessibility, I think it's helpful just to understand what we mean by this. So from a technology perspective, accessibility means that all people can use a technology without being excluded. And this is something that's really important for both social equality and inclusion. And technology that's defined as being accessible is technology that can be used successfully by as wide a range of people as possible, regardless of their functional abilities. So if they have vision impairments, if they have hearing impairments, if they're physically disabled, if they're neurodivergent, when technology is accessible, what that means is that each user or each person is able to interact with it in ways that work best for him or her. So if we think about this in the context of a desktop computer, there are lots of different ways you can input information via a mouse, via a keyboard, through speech recognition, even being able to control the cursor with, the eye tracking sensors and things like that. So if the operating system on the computer is accessible, then that will work with any of these things. And it also means that all people can use a technology without being excluded as well. So removing any barriers that would deny an equal full digital experience for people. And it is, I mean, it's incredibly important that we're able to provide technology that can make it as easy for people to contribute as possible. And when we think about why it matters, there's a few different things to consider. So first of all, everybody benefits. What do I mean by that? Well, if I look at some of the features that you'll be used to using or seeing in the Office apps today, for example, there are things in there that were designed to benefit people who had accessibility needs, which are now in the product and able to be used by everybody. So everybody benefits. It gives equal access to everybody. And accessibility levels the playing field as well. And when we come on to talk about how Copilot does this, I've got some really good examples that we've seen based on the research in my own organization about the value and the benefit that Copilot brings. And it's also just the right thing to do as well. I mean, there's no point building an app or rolling out a product if only a small percentage, or if only a percentage of people can use it. And actually, in a lot of countries, it's the law. It's enshrined in law that that technology and services should be accessible and inclusion. And there are accessibility standards that people need to meet in different countries around the world. And just to bring into perspective, again, from a numbers perspective, why this is so important. When we look at the population of the world, 1.3 billion people globally are classed as disabled, which is around 16% of the world population. And that number goes up every year. So we've got this, we've got this dynamic of an aging population. So people are living longer, they're getting more health problems later in life. 45% of people of pension age are disabled. 2% of people are becoming disabled every year. 1 in 4 people are affected by mental health during their life as well. We've got, in some, even in some what you might class as first world countries, there are problems with healthcare, there are problems with obesity, there are problems with lack of exercise, increase in neurodiversity. All of these things change the dynamics of the workforce and mean that we have more and more people using technology or of working age who may need accessibility adjustments. And then if we look specifically at neurodiversity, approximately 25% of chief execs are dyslexic. 10 to 20% of the global population, that this is an estimate because the levels of diagnosis might still be low, but approximately 10 to 20% of the global population is considered to be neurodivergent. And on the flip side of that, research shows us that teams who have neurodivergent professionals in their team who are able to work effectively can be 30% more productive than those without them. So that shows that these two slides show that there's a lot of people who have accessibility needs, but if we can start to enable them to work effectively, we can actually improve productivity from a team and an organization perspective. And then another lens to look at this from is actually, who benefits from accessibility features. And actually, we've talked about people who are disabled or people who are neurodivergent. There are, there are kind of ongoing, permanent situations where people have accessibility needs. So from a physical perspective, you might have a person who has one arm or who is physically impaired or disabled, someone who's permanently blind or fully blind, someone who's deaf. From a temporary perspective, you might have someone who broke their arm. And actually, I had someone who worked for me in my last organization who came off his bike and broke his shoulder. And he was actually able to to work using the accessibility features in Microsoft 365 for the period through which he was healing. And then situational as well. So you might have someone who's in a busy airport. You might have someone who's a new parent. You know, there are situations that might be short moments in time where people can be in an environment where they will too also benefit from accessibility features. So that's just a little bit of the context, you know, kind of what accessibility is, why this is important. What I wanted to do now was switch into accessibility specifically in Microsoft 365. So, like I said at the start, what we have is a rich set of features and capabilities that are embedded across the entire platform. And this is from operating system level through all the different applications, the browser, and those features cover a complete different range of capabilities that can help from an accessibility perspective. So things like captions. I'm sure you're all used to seeing captions in Teams meetings, subtitles in PowerPoint can be really helpful from an accessibility perspective. And actually, you can even use subtitles in another language. But captions are also available at the operating system level in Windows. They're available in Stream as well. So for people with hearing problems, whether that's temporary or permanent, captions can be a really good way to make it easier for them to follow along with the spoken word. The Windows Ease of Access Center is basically the accessibility control room for Windows. And within that, it includes a really rich set of capabilities that can be configured at an operating system level that can control things like color contrast, light mode or dark mode, focus mode, things like magnifier, being able to use narrator to actually narrate and talk through the Windows menu. So there are tons of things in that Windows Ease of Access Center, and a lot of people don't even know that those things exist. Then we've got Immersive Reader. Immersive Reader is an incredibly powerful tool, which I think was first developed for education, and I think it started in OneNote. But this again is now prevalent across lots of different parts of Microsoft 365. In Teams, you can actually view Teams messages in Immersive Reader. In Outlook, you can use Immersive Reader to focus on the content. It's there in the Edge browser. It's there in all of the Office apps. And what Immersive Reader does is it really helps you focus in. It helps you configure like the format and the background of the content and focus in on the content in a way that helps you concentrate. So for people with dyslexia, or people with ADHD or other forms of neurodiversity, it can give them a way to consume the content that is really easy and digestible. And one of the very first times I actually presented talking about the accessibility in M365, there was an autistic man who worked at my last organization who was in the session. And about 2 weeks later, he reached out to me and he said, "Thank you so much. The things that you showed me, the ability to be able to focus in line by line and change the way that the words are displayed into showing syllables." You know, he said it really helped me actually. It made it easier for me to understand the content of emails and to be able to apply to the thing that was actually being asked. So that has a really significant benefit. Dictation is really handy. So again, coming back to my colleague who broke his shoulder, he was able to continue, albeit a little bit more slowly, writing things like solution design documents using dictation. And then it was just a minor effort for him to go in and edit that. Focus settings. There are a few different places where there are focus settings. So Viva Insights allows you to do things like set focus time, which will give you blocks of time to concentrate. Windows 11 also has an operating system level focus experience as well, and I'll show you how you can actually get into that using Copilot. The accessibility checker, if you don't use this, go and turn this on in all of your PowerPoint slides. By default, accessibility checker is a really powerful tool that will help you make content that is more inclusive for your audience. So it will check things like page layout. Do slides have titles, which is really important for people who use screen readers. It will check things like whether images have alternative text associated with them, again, which is used by screen readers to help describe what's on the slide to someone who's visually impaired. It will check for things like color contrast, hard to read text, things that might be too small. It's a really powerful tool, and everybody should just use that by default. And then read aloud. So read aloud is a really interesting feature that I use quite a lot. I use this sometimes to review my own content that I've been producing, because when you listen to something, it's a different part of your brain that processes it to when you read it. So if you're working on content and you might have been spending quite a bit of time like in the weeds of the content, you can't tell anymore whether it makes sense. If you listen to it, you're reviewing it with like a fresh perspective in your brain. So you can tell instantly, like, is the sentence too long? Have you used the same word too many times? Does it make sense? So that's a benefit I get from read aloud. But for people who are visually impaired, this actually gives them a way to consume the content more easily as well. One of the other features that I like that's not listed here is the slide designer in PowerPoint. So when you add an image to a slide, designer will give you recommended layouts and things like that. That's actually a feature that was developed for someone who was physically disabled. I was in an event a few years ago where Jenny Leigh Fleury, who's the Chief Accessibility Officer at Microsoft, was talking about how they would develop some of their accessibility features. And she said that she has someone in her team who has motor neuron disease. And for them, they're trying to make a slide look nice took quite a lot of clicks and quite a lot of physical movement that was difficult and painful for them. So they created Slide Designer to actually help in that situation. But that's something that's now in the product that all of us can use. So that's a Whistlestop tour. I want to get onto the Copilot stuff because that's why you're all here. But these are just some of the features that are available in Microsoft 365. It's not exhaustive. If this is something you're interested in, I'd definitely recommend kind of going and doing a bit of research into this. But let's get on to the accessibility benefits specifically of Copilot. So, like I said at the start, I've been using Copilot since spring last year. And as part of the work that I did internally, one of the things that we ran was a focused research program. So as we started rolling out Copilot for M365 licenses to people in summer, we ran a research study that was actually looking at all of the different types of benefits that they could get. And one of the things that was really interesting to me was we started getting people telling us about all of these anecdotal accessibility benefits. So we weren't looking for this initially, but people started telling us that it was helping them in ways that we hadn't anticipated, which I thought was really interesting. And then, bear with me, just let me get a link for you. And then I started seeing people talk about this online as well. So this is a Twitter put in the chat. This is a Twitter post from someone a few years ago. a few years ago, a few weeks ago. This is Dave, and he said that Copilot has been his tool for a month now. He has cerebral palsy, so he's physically disabled. And what that meant was that normally it takes him about 8 minutes to write an email, and PowerPoint, a simple PowerPoint, would take him about 45 minutes. And in this video that he posted, he showed how he reduced the combined time to draft an email and create a PowerPoint deck from 53 minutes down to 11 minutes using Copilot. So that's a significant benefit for someone who might typically experience like difficulty, additional cognitive load in trying to just do the things that the rest of us take for granted. And some of the other things that we have seen, so some of this is from our research, some of this is now being reported more broadly. People started telling us that Copilot is making it easier for them to do the smart things that their colleagues know how to do. So it's closing the digital skills gap. For people who maybe are not as technically confident, Copilot's making it easier for them to be able to be more effective and to operate on a more level playing field. People with ADHD started reporting that Copilot in Teams meetings helps them keep focus. One person that I was talking to said, particularly if they're in a long online meeting, during the course of that meeting, their focus might wander. And if, like, normally the way that they'd recover from that would be to ask the speaker to repeat themselves, or if they feel too embarrassed to ask the speaker to repeat themselves, what they might do is just check out, and then they're not really paying attention for the rest of the meeting. They're not feeling comfortable and able to concentrate. So having Copilot in Teams meetings gives them that private AI assistant where they, if they lose focus, they can easily say to Copilot, summarize the last 5 minutes or summarize the last 10 minutes. And Copilot can help them get back up to speed so they can stay in the focus of what they're doing. People who are neurodivergent they told us that for them, that blank page problem is even more painful than it is for the rest of us. So starting with a blank page when you need to produce something can take a lot of cognitive effort, a lot of brain power to get over. So being able to use Copilot to give you something to start from, and then you edit that to make that what you need, even if Copilot doesn't give you exactly what you're looking for, getting over that blank page paralysis is a real benefit that's helping people with neurodiversity be able to again operate on a more level playing field. And then the physical disabilities that I've talked about. So people with mobility issues reporting significant time-saving benefits. The Twitter link that I shared, that that's someone who is using Copilot for M365. At Ignite in September, Microsoft played a video of someone else who was physically disabled who has been using GitHub Copilot from a coding perspective. And he talked about how it's made it easier for him to code. It's less effort. He's able to focus more. You can use GitHub Copilot to generate the initial code and then spend his time improving that to get the outcomes that he wants. And it's also helping with things like commenting and the documentation side of things, which is usually a real additional significant effort for someone who's physically impaired. Okay, so that's just the context. Now we're going to get to the fun stuff, which is the demo. So let me just get rid of my slides, and we are going to start with Windows Copilot. So Windows Copilot is still in preview. It's not yet connected to Copilot for M365, but when it is connected to Copilot for M365, I think it will become even more powerful. So I've got all of the prompts that I'm using for the demo in a in a notepad in another window, and I've just copied the first one. So first of all, you can see the first thing it's doing actually is it's picking up the fact that I've copied text and asking me if I want to send it to the chat. So let me, so I've copied, hang on, is that even going to work? Yeah, so I use the prompts. I have ADHD. What are some Windows settings that might benefit me, and how do I turn them on? And it's giving me some Windows settings that could be beneficial. So it's encouraging me to simplify the start menu, to turn on Focus Assist, to use Immersive Reader, which I've talked about. It's pointing me at Windows shortcuts. So let me say, how do I turn on Focus Assist? And that is actually, rather than telling me how to turn on Focus Assist, it's actually giving me the ability to do that from directly within Windows Copilot. So if I press yes, that will actually turn on Do Not Disturb mode on my computer. I could also say, how do I turn on dark mode? And again, it's giving me the button to turn on dark mode from directly within Windows Copilot. So it's not just explaining what might help and how to how to go find the setting for this. It's actually giving me the button to be able to do this straight away, which is, I think, just incredibly powerful. Let's ask some other questions. So what other settings can help improve focus? There we go. It's not really giving me anything new, but you can see for someone who needs accessibility settings, instead of needing to know how to get into the Ease of Access Center and what they might be looking for, they can just ask questions in natural language in Windows Copilot, and it will help them point to the right setting that is going to be of benefit to them. Okay, so that's Copilot in Windows. If I just move that, and if you have any questions as I'm going as well, please do feel free to pop them in the chat or pop your hand up. So let me just bring this Edge browser. So I have Copilot in Edge. So the little button at the top right hand corner. This is connected to Bing Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, formerly known as Bing. And what I'm going to do is just show you a couple of different examples of how the Edge browser can help you understand and interact with content that's online in a way that's more easy, that's easier to digest. So this is a video of Satya Nadella speaking at Ignite. It's not a very long video, but you could imagine if this is a much longer video, if there was, if the person watching is deaf, has limited hearing, they might get lucky and the video has subtitles, but for them to actually get the insight and the understanding out of that, they're going to need to watch the whole thing. And also for people who might have trouble focusing or concentrating, again, keeping the focus through a long video might be quite difficult. So with Copilot in Edge, I can actually ask it questions about the content that I'm looking at in the Edge browser. And here I'm going to ask it to summarize this video in 5 actionable bullet points. So what that's going to do is actually it's using the transcript in this instance, but it's going to look inside that content and answer based on the information and insight that it's gleaned from that. So you can see here, it's telling me, Satya's talking about Copilot, outlining the vision, talking about M365, the introduction of Copilot Studio. So again, this is only a short video, but imagine how powerful that is in terms of helping people gain understanding and insight from content that might be much longer. I can also ask it additional questions. So I could say, tell me more about Copilot Studio. And at this point, it can start going to other sources as well, and pulling in additional information that might be relevant. I can ask it, what other resources can I use to help learn about a particular thing that's in this video. So that's really powerful. Actually, yeah, just while I'm here. So this has gone off and found this information elsewhere, but I could actually ask it to answer from this video instead. So instead of it using additional sources, if I want to make sure it's really tightly scoped to what's in this video, I can do that, or I can ask the broader question. And then from an accessibility perspective, you'll see here we've also got read aloud. So
certainly, Copilot Studio is a...
I don't think that's going to play for you because it's coming through into my headphones, but you can see that, if you've got a long video, you want to be able to get quick insights to help you understand it in a more digestible format. And then you can use read aloud as a different way for you to be able to interact with that. The other thing that you'll notice as well is the little microphone button at the bottom here. So when we think about different ways of people being able to input, I don't have to type the command. I can actually say the prompt and interact with Copilot in that way, which is great from an accessibility perspective. I'm going to jump over to a blog, and you'll see here this is a reasonably long article. And I can do similar here. I can ask it to generate a page summary for me. That will give me a nice summary of all of the content in here, which again makes it easier for people to understand this. So, I've heard people who are dyslexic talk about how when they're looking at long content, they actually use Copilot in this way to be able to summarize the key themes and messages and points that is in the content. So that's given me a summary of the key updates from this blog, which is great. I can let me test this. So I can use the microphone. What other resources can help me learn more about this? Don't think that's actually picked up my prompts properly, but let's see what it does with that. Just to show that there are
certainly. If you're interested in learning more about Microsoft Copilot, here are some valuable resources to get you started.
So the really interesting thing there was actually in my headphones, it started reading out the response. So I inputted with voice, and it started, as well as producing the text in Copilot, it actually started reading it out to me as well. Okay, so that's Copilot in Edge. Now let's move over to Copilot in M365. And I'll show you again. There's not a huge amount of time to go through everything here, but just to show you some of the different things that can be of benefit. So I'm in Copilot chat. Someone sent me a long file that I might need to look at, and one of the things that I can do is so if I find this, you'll notice this is a PDF as well. So imagine this is a long document someone sent you. It's difficult for you to read and consume content. So you can use Copilot either in Copilot chat or in Copilot in Word or PowerPoint to actually help you summarize and understand content more effectively, to be able to pull out the things that are actionable, to pull out the key themes. And you can see here, this is a public white paper. So you'll see here, this is giving me, 5 actionable bullet points. And then at the bottom, it's actually giving me some additional questions that it thinks I might want to know as well. So I could say, what are the benefits of decentralized identity? And that is looking for that information for me. So, when we think about people who are neurodivergent, this can give them a really different and easier way to interact with and get up to speed with content. I actually use this really extensively. So when people send me files, this is one of the first things that I do with them before I actually look at the Word document, before I look at the PowerPoint deck. I'll ask Copilot to summarize for me and to pull out some of these key themes so that it can help me get a head start on that understanding and reduce that cognitive load. So that's just a little bit in Copilot chat. I'm going to move on to PowerPoint. So you'll see here I have a blank PowerPoint, and what I'm going to do is ask it to create a presentation for me that talks about the benefits of Copilot and generative AI from the perspective of accessibility, neurodiversity, and inclusion. And you know, when we come back to that blank page problem, or when we think about people who might find it physically difficult to you know, to have lots of clicks and moving the mouse around and typing, being able to use Copilot in this way can make it really easy to get started. And you can see this has given me 6 slides. The level of content's not great, but actually if I go to review, you'll see I've got this check accessibility box here. And because I've used Copilot, it hasn't the slides have been created in a way where there aren't any accessibility issues. Now, I tested this morning, and it created a similar set of slides for me, and there was actually one accessibility issue. But compared to most PowerPoint slides that I use accessibility checker on, that's incredible. You know, most slides are just full of accessibility issues, which mean that it will be difficult for people with screen readers or who have vision problems to actually be able to read and digest the information on them. So, you know, really easy. If I was actually using this might give me like a structure and a starting point where I can go in and make changes and get this to the level that I need. The other thing that I really like with Copilot in PowerPoint as well is that it's actually creating speaker notes for me. So again, just kind of giving you that starting point that you can build upon with your knowledge and your expertise. And then if we go to Word, so in Microsoft Word, this is the same document that I asked Copilot chat to summarize. But I wanted to just show you a few different things here. So I'm in Word, and if I go to View, this is where the immersive reader is. So this is where I can control, you know, how the content is displayed. I can adjust text spacing. I can adjust the number of lines. There's some really powerful things in here. For people who are dyslexic, it's possible to, well, for anybody who finds it helpful, it's possible to change the way that words are shown so that you actually get dots to highlight where the syllables change. So I can see the comments saying you can't see the shared screen. Is anyone else having problems? Could anyone else just confirm whether you can see the screen or not?
I can see the screen, Joy. You
can see. Okay, Joanne, maybe it's worth just leaving and coming back into the call if everybody else can see it. Okay, so you can see here I've turned on the syllable setting. I can do things like highlight the nouns, the verbs, things like that. So there are all these tools in Microsoft 365 that can, you know, this is so powerful and can make it really easy for people to read. You can see I've got dark mode enabled, which is you know, easier from like a cognitive load perspective. It's easier on the eyes, less tiring when you're working with a computer all day. And then I also have Copilot as well. So you can see I've been asking questions already in here. So I can summarize the document. Again, that's going to give me a similar output to the one that I had in Copilot chat. I could ask it to summarize this document in a way that I can share it with my CEO. and senior leadership team. So you can give it kind of additional context. You can give it tone as well. You know, with things like exec communication, sometimes that might give people additional mental pressure if they're having to kind of create something for a senior audience. So being able to use Copilot to reduce some of that mental load can be really powerful. And again, being able to you know, ask it for actionable bullet points, other content that might be useful, all of those things are super powerful. Okay, so that's a super quick demo. There's tons more that I would really like to show you, but unfortunately we've only got, I think, 10 minutes, 9 minutes left. So there was just a few things that I wanted to share with you before we finish. So first of all, one of the things that is really important to recognize with Copilot is that what we need people to do is to change their behaviors. So, you know, and this is true for people who would benefit from accessibility features or not. We've all developed ways of working. You know, we've got working habits, working practices, the way that we manage our inbox, our meetings, the way we create, collaborate, the way we communicate. These are all habits that we've developed throughout the course of our education and then our working life. So when we look at Copilot, there are tons of Copilot features or tons of ways that you can use Copilot that can help you, that can make it easier for you to produce content, that can reduce the cognitive load, that can help you do things that are more accurate or better quality. But to be able to actually bring them into the way that you work requires focus and time. And people need time. They need to practice to be able to build and train their Copilot muscle. And one of the things that I found really interesting is that when I look at some of the different types of people who are using Copilot, the way that people build and train their Copilot muscle is, you know, they look for things that work for them. They try to bring that into their daily workflow. And where they find the things that work, hopefully they're impactful enough for them to keep on using it, and it becomes a habit. So it becomes part of that daily practice. And when we look at the people who are getting neurodiversity or accessibility benefits from Copilot, they're the ones actually who have seen, you know, they've seen the most impact. So they're bringing it into their workflow because for them, it's making work so much easier. It's making it easier for them to operate on a level playing field with their colleagues. It's making it easier for them to code. It's making it easier for them to understand content and get the insights and the actionable messaging out of stuff. So this is really important. People need to build and train their Copilot muscle. But what we've seen is that people with accessibility needs, particularly around neurodiversity, might require a different way of driving adoption. So particularly with Copilot for M365 and Microsoft Copilot or Bing, you know, those two, and Windows Copilot as well, probably, you know, those are the things that will go out to kind of general users. They have very general kind of broad productivity use cases and benefits. And it's available in lots of different apps, and it can be used in lots of different ways. So one of the things that I've observed is that where people are being, you know, all of this information is being shared with them about what's possible, that information overload can be challenging for neurodiverse people. There's too much information, it's overwhelming. So when we think about how, you know, when we think about what that adoption journey looks like, you know, there might be a need to think about doing this differently. One of the things that we found is that mastery of Copilot takes time. So focusing on smaller tasks, allocating time for learning, and avoiding the temptation to explore all of the features at the same time, because again, that can be quite overwhelming. And when we think about adoption of Copilot, regardless of which Copilot it is, I think it's important that we focus on all of the different techniques, all of the different learning techniques So visual aids, you know, one-page guides, short videos, audio exercises, open hours, group sessions, knowledge sharing, focusing on role-specific benefits and creating a community where people can share the things that have worked for each other, just to help people be able to adopt all of these really powerful features in a way that's helpful for them and not actually adding to their cognitive load. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I mean, we're only like a year into the Copilot journey, really, 18 months into the generative AI journey. And I can already see that the benefits from an accessibility and inclusion perspective are going to be really, really significant. So I think when we think back to the numbers that I shared at the start of this presentation, from a productivity perspective, you know, if we can empower the significant numbers of people who are disabled to be able to contribute to the workforce, to contribute in a way that's productive, we can actually achieve really great things. You know, we can improve economies, we can improve their lives as well. We can get people back into employment. There's so much that we can do with this. So I personally am really excited and feel like we're at the start of a journey that's going to have a significant impact on lots of people's lives. One thing that I did want to share, so I'm the co-host of the Copilot Connection podcast with Kevin McDonnell. The links on, if I'll pop these links in the chat, so you can subscribe to our podcast. We publish 1 or 2 episodes a month, and we've literally just this morning opened a call for speakers for the month of Copilots, which will be in June 2024. And this will be a month of sessions that we'll release on a daily basis, which will cover all Copilots. So if you have experience with Copilot, if you have a story to share, we'd love to get your session in. You know, we want to be able to get as many real world examples of how people are using it, as many people's different viewpoints as possible. So I'll pop the links in the chat. Please do get in touch if you've got any questions. And just a huge thank you. Again, a thank you to all of you for attending. Thank you to all of the sponsors. A huge shout out to all of my fellow Viva Explorers. And if any of you have any questions in the last 2 minutes, drop them in the chat. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Okay, any questions? Assuming all good? Brilliant.
Thank you, Zoe, for this wonderful and insightful session. Really appreciate taking out your time and presenting a wonderful session with us. And for everybody who joined, feel free to share any questions in the chat if you have, or you can reach out to always over LinkedIn or any other social channels for any queries you have. Thank you once again, Joe, for sharing this wonderful session.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And for our next session, I'd like to call out Ambish.